I escaped the witch babysitter. When I was 7 years old, I escaped the witch babysitter. Now, when I was a child, I got the European fairy tales. And if you don't know what that means, European fairy tales are like cautionary tales, which means they are scary as fuck. They are meant to scare children to behave, to be careful, to avoid danger, and that kind of thing. They're like horror stories for kids. All right, so uh, the witches in the stories are really scary. So I had this babysitter that looked just like the witches in the fairy tales, the European fairy tales that I was being read. Okay? And the fairy tales were in German. So that made them even more scary. But the witches in the fairy tales, the babysitter looked just like the witch. Okay, the babysitter had like a dorsal nose, like with a hump on it, and a prominent pointy chin. And she had like warts on her nose and on her chin with hair coming out. I know you guys probably think I'm full of it and I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. I mean, she literally looked like a witch from a European fairy tale book. And it was weird because she had a teenage daughter, and the daughter was absolutely beautiful. The daughter looked like a fairy princess, and the daughter picked me up from school and walked me over to her house. And so I was not prepared for how scary the mom looked. The mom was terrifying, and I saw her and I was like, obviously I was scared, right? Like any kid would be scared to see this lady that looked just like a wicked witch. So, don't judge people by their looks and all that kind of stuff. But the lady was mean. The lady didn't want to give me a glass of water. The lady didn't want to let me use the bathroom. She didn't want me to go inside the house. She wanted me to go outside. There wasn't even a hose to drink from outside. And I know that sounds really funny, but that's how we drank back in those days. This year was 1976 or 77, and I'm Gen X, and we drank from hoses back in those days. So that was a common practice. There was no hose to drink from outside. So there was no way to get water outside. There was no shade, and it was about 100 degrees outside with all these kids, and they were just absolutely covered in dirt. There was a rusty swing set with no swings on it. There were bugs everywhere. There was dirt everywhere. Everybody was just flinging dirt at each other. There were like a million kids out back, and everybody was just absolutely filthy back there. And I was scared because I was getting heat sick. I've never tolerated the heat well. I'm just very fair, very pale, and never tolerated the heat. So I knocked on the door and I said, I'm going to get sick because it's so hot outside. And she said, your mother said you were supposed to be outside. Now, I didn't believe her. She just didn't want me to come into the house. And I saw that some of the kids were inside the house, but apparently I wasn't one of the elite that could come into the house. So I was out there and I was just leaning against the fence, wondering what I was going to do and how I was going to tell my mother what was going on. And I wondered, who told my mother about this babysitter? Like, who recommended this woman to my mother, for my mother to, leave me with this person? So this was my first day at school, and I wondered if I could find my way home, if I should just walk home and go sit in my own backyard, sit on my porch and get under the shade. like, but we lived in a bad neighborhood, so it was just kind of like, that was kind of a scary idea, and I didn't know if I could find my way home. But oddly enough, I wasn't even that far from my house, but I didn't know that, and I was a little girl. And this boy comes walking by, and this was the first day that I was at a new school, and this boy goes, "Hey, aren't you the new girl in our class?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "What are you doing?" And there was a broken board in the fence, and I said, "The babysitter's mean." And he said, "You want to take a walk with me?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I climbed through the board in the fence, and he and I took a walk. We walked to the supermarket. We walked to the park. There was a water fountain there at the park. He bought me some toys at the 25-cent thing that has the toys in it. He bought me a bunch of little toys there. And then we walked to a restaurant, and they gave us tall, cool glasses of ice water. We drank the ice water, and then he walked me back because he was from there. He knew his way around. So he walked me back, and I said, "Thank you for playing with me today," And I thought that was really nice of him, and he just wanted some company. So, I went on a nice little date. It was really nice. I climbed back through the hole in the fence where the board was loose. I had this pocket full of toys that the boy bought me. I had a lovely day. I came through the fence. I was just like, well, at least now I have some toys to play with. These kids are all covered in dirt. Everybody's just sweaty and grimy and nasty. And this boy comes up to me and he goes, "Oh my God, did you leave?" And I said, "No." I wasn't going to admit it. And the witch babysitter comes outside and said, "Did you leave?" And I said, "No." It's like I'm the only kid out there who isn't covered in dirt from head to toe. Yeah, it's obvious I left. I was gone for hours. Yes, I left. Duh. This lady is just a witch. And I said, "Can I come in and wait for my mom?" So she finally let me come in. And I watched Bewitched, which was one of my favorite shows. And then my mom picked me up, and we went home, and she said, "Where did you get all those toys?" And I said, promise you won't spank me." I said, because I have something to tell you. I said, that lady was not paying attention, and the conditions in the house are really bad, and this is what happened today. So I told her exactly what happened, and I said, she wasn't watching me. I left the house. With a classmate, and we were gone for hours, and we did this, that, and the other, and she let me get away. And that is really common with kids on the spectrum. We will just get away if the adults aren't watching us. So, and I said, "Mom, she's a mean witch. She wouldn't let me in the house. I told her I was getting heat sick, and she lied and said that you said I can't come in the house. And she's a mean witch and everything like that." Well, my mom goes, "Let me find somebody else to watch you, because it sounds like she's not very responsible and she's not very nice. And it sounds like you're really scared of her." So she was looking for somebody else to watch me. Well, then my dad got laid off, and I got to stay home with my dad. So then I got to have all kinds of fun with my dad. My dad started building things at home, and building cabinets for people, and doing all kinds of different things, just making money, just doing different stuff at home. So I got to stay home with my dad. So it actually ended up working out. But that was the witch babysitter, and she just had too many kids there. She just, and the only time she came outside was when somebody was crying, and she goes, "Now what?" Like somebody was legit hurt. and crying because like some pole hit them on the head or something like that. And I don't know if she had a drinking problem or what, but she never should have been responsible for all those kids. I mean, her backyard was really dangerous, and CPS should have shut that place down. But anyway, um, that's a typical Gen X type thing, though. I mean, it was really just negligent, and I think if my mom would have known that was going on, she never would have left me there. But yeah, that lady looked exactly like a witch, and I got away from her. So I had a really nice time with that boy, and it was actually a happy memory. And I hope all those kids there are okay. But that's my story with the witch babysitter.